What's up? Thanks for coming back through. Stoked today. Got my hands on them. I got my hands on them, y'all. It's not the color I wanted, but we'll live with it. I want it to be a slightly different review today because these things are so super popular. And normally I review the obscure stuff, the little known stuff, the weird stuff. But every now and again, you come here and you'll see some of the more hyped shoes that everybody is after. That's the case today. I've been a fan of this shoe since the first iteration. I have followed this shoe. The only one I don't have is the 2. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Longest name in shoe history. Of course, we're going to be reviewing the Adidas ADIZERO Adios Pro 4. The EKIDEN model. I wanted the original release day colorway. Of course, I wanted the all white with the black stripes that looks exactly like the Evo Pro. But I toiled over it. And I said, do I want to miss this shoe just because it's not the color I want? Nah, we're going to go ahead and get it. I'm over the moon. I'm blown away. Everything you've heard about it is true. The reports about this shoe are not exaggerated. But you've already heard it. There's tons of reviews about it. So what I'm going to try and do is go from my more practical sense of I am not a marathoner. I am not a distance runner. However, I do need to get mileage in. I do need to get a certain amount of reps in. I do need to put this shoe through its paces in the way that I do. I run intervals more than I run anything else. It's great on concrete and treadmills. It's great at democratizing the surfaces that you run on because it absorbs all the pressure. It absorbs all the forces and then gives you back pure energy. I want to talk about it in that way. I want to talk about it in the sense of some things that I, even watching a ton of reviews myself, have not heard. First, I want to talk about the iterations and how this feels in comparison. I have been a fan of the Adios Pro. Actually, I've been a fan of the ADIZERO line since long before they were Pro. The ADIZERO Tempo was my absolute favorite training shoe. That's what I loved about the progression of where they took these shoes. The ADIZERO Tempo was so on point. The Adios Pro was crazy. This is still by far and away one of the most beautiful shoes I've ever seen. The cellar mesh, a lot of the innovations, they're still doing the big stripes. That happened with this model during this era. No heel counter needed, hard spine, more traditional collar. The laces have always been the spaghetti laces, but I like that this was a gusseted, strapped down tongue. There were a lot of features that I love. The 2 is non-existent in my collection because I did not like that shoe at all. It just did not do what that one had the promise of. But when they moved to the 3 was outstanding. This is my very coveted Mexico City model, which I've had customized for to say CDMX with my logo, with my brand logo on there and on the instep. This shoe was phenomenal. This changed the game for me. This got me out on the roads to do a little bit more mileage, to get in better shape, because as a sprinter jumper, just running intervals doesn't always do it. I have to burn the calories some way. I have to get my capacity and my fitness up in a different way. This was the shoe that got me out there. This was the shoe that made running actually fun. Distance running actually fun. Amazing, amazing shoe. It's been through a lot. The tread is held up. That was always what everyone was worried about. I actually have more wear and tear up here in the part where I roll off of it than I do the tread. But I absolutely love this model. This is a phenomenal shoe. So as we go through and we talk about the Adios Pro 4, in comparison to the Adios Pro 3, there's some features that you have to talk about. The improvements of this shoe come directly on some of the complaints of this shoe. Now, I didn't have the same complaints that everyone had about the lacing and some other things. I just didn't have those complaints. But there are some noticeable differences immediately stepping into the shoe that I love. So let's get into it. Upper, midsole, outsole, like we always do. This upper is crazy. In comparison, and there'll be a lot of comparison, in comparison to the much harsher wire mesh almost, this basket mesh of the Adios Pro 3. The 4 is a super thin ripstop. I don't really know about the breathability. It's actually very breathable, but it is a form of ripstop, which is pretty impressive. It's light. It's not even sock-like. It's stocking-like, which was pretty surprising. The Adidas stripes are definitely not decoration. Where in years past, they've just kind of been painted on. Those things are actually on there, and they're providing some structure to the outside and the instep. I actually like the ones on the instep that disappear underneath the foam. The lacing is more traditional now. Straightforward lacing with these felt fused pieces. It's very interesting that they're felt. I wonder if that's to provide less damage to the lacing system, because this fusing was harsh. This fusing was pretty hardcore. And so was the upper, the scratchy upper. It gave great material. It gave great breathability, but cellar mesh is rough. If you had thin socks or no socks, it's rough. You know, thicker socks would be fine, but then thicker socks, breathability goes down. Blah, 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 blah. This shoe is phenomenal. In terms of that upper, very light, almost non-existent, almost not there. This feature right here is probably my favorite ADIZERO hangover. The ADIZERO Tempo, as I mentioned, was exactly like this. It had a strapping that went all the way down into and past the midsole, so that on toe off, the shoe was actually pulled forward into the rocker. That's part of the rocker that no one's talking about. The ADIZERO line has always had a back strapping right there, across the Achilles and across the heel bone, that pulled up as you toed off. ADIZERO Tempo. If I could find those, Adidas re-released the ADIZERO Tempo. It's a great companion to these if you really think about it. The old ADIZERO Tempo, not the newer ones. Laces are the spaghetti laces that everyone complains about. I really don't have a problem. The tongue. Not only is it gusseted, it goes all the way back to the 1 with the very strapped down, sewed down tongue. Light lock is what they're calling that. It's not the neoprene stretchy tongue of the 1. It's kind of like the loose bacon tongue of the 3, but it's actually sewn in. So getting into it with socks provided a little bit of a struggle, but you get in just fine. Now it's a short tongue. It's not going to come up nearly as high as this one, but it was really, really comfortable. And once you tied it down, this upper kind of sucked down to your foot. It was cool. It was a really cool feeling that made it feel both there and not there at the same time. Like it felt like sock reinforcement with a bottom on it. It's crazy. They've got this really cool padded section. I like it very much. Right there on the tongue, it pads against the laces on top of your instep. So I've got a really bony top part of my instep. Sometimes lacing down hurts a bit. This is an actual padded piece that actually helps with that. Small thing, chef kiss. The heel portion is pretty much the same. They've moved the padding and added a little bit of padding back there. Just a little slight bit of padding that wraps around. On here, they had the same padding, but they had that weird, almost cat tongue texture. This is back to being a smooth piece of felt. And then there's a little bit of padding back on the notch. Now, the one thing that is a holdover from this that bugged me, and it probably only bugged me, when you fold that down, this piece becomes sharp. And if you don't have a sock that, like some of us don't run in the higher socks. I run in fairly low socks. I like a sock with a little tail lip on it, little whale tail that comes across here to protect that. That can get a little sharp if you don't have any material on your Achilles right there. So beware of that. The insoles kind of throw me. The insoles are a little weird in that they've always had these little holes, these little cutouts. I don't know if they're there for traction or breathability. All I know is I can feel my feet sucking into these little holes, at least when you first start running in them. Now, back in the olden times of pledging a fraternity, there may or may not have been a paddle that has holes in it, that when it hits your skin, it sucks your skin into the hole and it hurts like hell. That's what it felt like at first. It mellowed out, so maybe it's just a beginning, fresh, brand new type of thing. Just something to be aware of. This thing is great. Again, you've heard about it. You've heard about it. So I just want to give you a quick hit of my experience. Today I did a little bit of track running, lots of walking as I was coaching, and then I hopped on the treadmill for a couple of miles. This rocker is noticeably different. First off, I will say, as you are first getting into the shoe, it is a little wobbly. It is noticeably softer than the 3. Light Strike Pro was super dense in the 3, and this shoe remained a little bit wobbly. I'm a bigger runner, so I could compress it, but it was much more dense. This, you sink into it pretty good, but there's still like about 10 minutes of break-in time where it's a little wobbly at first, and if you're used to the 3, you can feel that the rocker has been pushed back, and so it feels like you're falling forward off the tip of your foot, or off the ball of your foot. That's going to come in handy when you actually run. That's going to be a lot of fun when you actually run. This midsole made the treadmill disappear. I absolutely hate running on treadmills, but as I got rolling on this thing, I almost didn't want to stop. It made it so easy to get my steps, to get my stride, to get my mile in. I'm like, okay, let's go for a little longer. Okay, let's go for a little longer. It physically made it easier to run, which is crazy. I've seen that. I've felt that with shoes. Again, this one made it fun to run. This one made it easy to run. It's crazy. You're working off of the same energy rod system. I don't believe they changed the rods. I do believe how they placed them in there, and the foam changed the rocker. The rods were for stability and stiffness. So I don't think a lot of that changed. I do believe those stayed the same. Now, since I've shown it, let's go ahead and get into it. You've heard about the Continental plug. You can feel that grip as you toe off. It is a little different. It's stickier. That is noticeably stickier than the rest. But I will say, I like some surface area. I very much like some surface area. This one was a racing flat, and you felt great. You had plenty of grip. This one, there's just something to having some surface area and a slight digital waffle pattern underneath there. I feel like this piece is Continental also, even though it doesn't have Continental listed on it, because it's noticeably stickier than the rest. And they're calling that light traction. So you've got, light boost, light traction. You've got light strike. Light is their thing nowadays. But it's definitely a noticeable stickiness right here and lots of grip here. So while this might be Continental rubber and it's sticky all over, on this one, you get that piece, but what you're getting here is the surface area and grip. You can take this a little bit off-road, not a lot. But if you're running some hills, you want to get on some grass, you're going to get some grip out of this. That's noticeable and it's needed. It democratizes the surface again. And I've always said that. When they first came out with this shoe was made for Elite. Everyone else could go along with it and try it. But even when they released it, you couldn't find them. They were releasing them at marathons. It was the first time that that had been done. Adidas was slightly even ahead of the curve when it came to Nike doing the same thing. This shoe, as you've progressed from the 1 to the 4, this shoe feels more like off-the-shelf Elite. This was super top secret Elite. This is over-the-counter Elite. This is meant for far more foot types, for far more ability types, all the way up to great runners. But then that's why they made the Evo. To be able to get into this shoe, to be able to have more foot types, more running types, more workout types be done in this shoe, it democratizes running. And that's what every brand is trying to do. Get more runners to go running. This is phenomenal. Everything you've heard about it is true. My next quest is to try to get the Evo SL, to give that a try. Apparently it is the full light strike. This one is a 39 millimeter stack height. I believe that one is roughly about the same. I love how they digitized that and put that on there. That's really cool. But I'd like to get it as a companion piece and see what it feels like to have Light Strike Pro with no energy rod shanks in there. The ADIZERO Adios Pro 4 from Adidas is everything you think it's gonna be. Get some. And if anybody knows how to get the white and black pair, please let me know, because I want the white pair with the black stripes. There's nothing wrong with the EKIDEN model, but I want the original. Peace.